Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Hockey Jersey Addicts. It's Dan, aka Van Can Fan 75. And today I have the pleasure to be joined by two other addicts out there enough to write a book that we're all enjoying right now. I've got the authors of Fabric of the Game. That's right. Chris Creamer and Todd Radom are here today with me to discuss everything about this book and their love for hockey jerseys. So thank you both so much for coming on today. I'll start with you, Todd. Age before beauty, of course. Thanks for coming on. Why don't you say hi to all of our listeners out there?
Well, we can have both, can't we, Dan? Touche, but thank you. Thank you so much for having us. We are excited. I can't speak for Chris. But maybe I will. I'm excited to be here with you and with your listeners. And what a great, always a great time to talk hockey sweaters.
It is.
Absolutely, yes. And of course, I'm excited, Todd. What kind of thing is that to say? I think you could speak on my behalf for that one. Who wouldn't be excited about such a great book? And it's doing so well, right?
I know.
Not that we're surprised, right? We knew it. But we shocked the world, he says.
Yes, we did shock the world.
I am just so happy for you guys. And I mean, it gangbusters just out of the gate. Like, you couldn't even get it quickly right afterwards. So were you just like, oh my God, this is an amazing problem to have, and what do we do next? And
I think you kind of hit it, Dan. You know, it is a problem, but on the other hand, a nice problem. So basically what happened was, working with our publisher and distributor, our publisher, Skyhorse Books / Sports Publishing, distributed by Simon & Schuster. There was an underestimation for demand of this title, to say the very least. And the book blew out in, I believe, less than 48 hours. They went back for a second printing, which is somewhat of an arduous thing under the best of circumstances, because it's being done overseas in Asia. And given the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic where, transportation and all this stuff just hasn't been smooth. But the good news is that as we sit here tonight, the second printing has landed in Simon & Schuster's warehouse, located somewhere in the central portion of the United States. Woo-hoo. And is about to be ready to be released to the greater world.
Awesome. Congratulations. And what great news for all of those people out there that are wondering when they're going to be able to get another one, and they need the printed version, like myself, who just loves having that flip through feel and just being able to pull it off the shelf and grab it. Because Chris, I'm curious from your perspective too. Were you kind of like, okay, this makes sense because we're also going to do a digital version, which I know is always available, and you're like, people will probably just be happy with that? Or
no, I knew people would want the print version, right? Like a book like this, especially when it's being designed and laid out by my esteemed colleague, Mr. Todd Radom, we knew that people would want the physical copy. Like, come on, right? Like it doesn't compare to the digital version. I don't care. Some people out there prefer the digital. Yeah, but you're not quite right. I think if you prefer the digital over the, there's just something magical about being able to flip the page and actually see it and experience it and read it. And then over time, that spine gets worn out just from looking at it so many times, and having it on your shelf, just that alone, and don't put it on your shelf, put it on your coffee table where everyone can see it. It's just amazing. Like just for the cover alone, right? That cover is not meant to be a thumbnail on an e-reader. That cover is meant to be displayed proudly amongst all your possessions. So I am surprised that it sold out so fast. Maybe I just underestimate myself as well, but not anymore. So really looking forward to actually seeing this book on the shelf in a bookstore one day, because it just sold out so fast the first time that I never quite got to experience that. But perhaps at some point you people will stop buying the book so I can actually see it.
I would say that.
They know I'm kidding. Keep buying it.
It's funny because I've never wanted like to go to a book signing so much before, because I just figured like the panel would be a lot like this conversation we're having right now. I would be like, how did you decide what went into the book? And oh my gosh, during your research, it must have been so fun reading all these other factoids that you just knew couldn't make it in, but are just such a compelling part of hockey history. And I personally, the reason I love the book is because while it's laid out alphabetically for the most part by team, you're also learning a lot about the history of the game through hockey jerseys. And that's personally why I love collecting. I think it's just such a fun way to converse with people about the sport that I love and so many other people love. So that's kind of why when I saw it, I was like, I must have this, because it was a manifestation of a lot of what I did with collecting. How did it manifest for you guys? How did it go from just a pie in the sky idea or a thought together to, collaborating and making this a reality?
Well, I think Chris and I have talked about collaborating on something for quite some time. And what became Fabric of the Game kicked into gear, I would say, in the fall of 2017, okay, when we really got serious about this. And I flew up to Toronto for 2 days, and Chris and I paid a visit to the Hockey Hall of Fame's Resource Center, looking at old sweaters and looking at publications and paying a visit to the museum part of the Hall of Fame and really immersing ourselves in the visual traditions of this great game. Yeah. And, feeling, a very tactile experience, not unlike having the actual book as opposed to a digital book, having the privilege, and Chris, I guess you can expand upon it, of being admitted to this very, rarefied air, if you want to look at it that way. And we worked on this book for, as it turned out, 3 years, finished it up in the middle of a pandemic. And Chris, I guess you can expand upon that if you'd like, and also how we kind of brought the thing to fruition in terms of an editor and a publisher, which I think is a good story.
Yeah, sure. Well, for me, it started a little bit earlier, and that was through my role with the National Hockey League. I was hired as a research consultant for their centennial celebration. Mm-hmm. My job was, for me, a dream job, and that was to help them nail down the team logo timeline for every franchise. And they're like, nice. Yeah, right. So,
that's so cool.
Good guy for the job, right? So part of that, they allowed me to go into this Hockey Hall of Fame Resource Center and work with guys like Craig Campbell and Phil Pritchard, cool. The two people you see walk out the Stanley Cup at the end of every season. And what this is like a big warehouse, which is full of the things that they don't have the room to display at the museum. And so it's like a dream come true, just walking down these aisles and being able to pull out, oh, look, there's Jacques Plante's like game worn mask and it's just sitting in a bag there.
Oh my gosh.
Like these, we found like, what was it? Eddie Shore's jersey from the 1920s, Boston Bruins, right? Like things you can't even imagine even existing. And there it is right in front of you. And it's like a huge, like an airport hangar full of this stuff.
Wow. Climate controlled and very secure, I would add.
And during my job with the NHL, you start getting these ideas. You could really put a book together with all this stuff here. That's what can I do? Always looked for an excuse to work with Todd. And after reading his series of articles on the Sporting News and through his own blog, mm-hmm. He had done some great dives into team identity history. Mm-hmm. Go check out his site if you want to see those. They're mm-hmm. still up there and they're amazing. And I proposed the idea to him. That was like spring of 17, I believe. And as Todd mentioned, he came up in October 17, went to that resource center together, went to a Leafs Red Wings game at the Air Canada Center, sat center ice. bought tickets 5 minutes before puck drop off of a StubHub or something for, a fraction of the price, watched the game, went to Gretzky's after the game, and ran into Wally.
Walt, was he there?
Yeah, he was
there. Awesome.
And from there, it was, we started writing it without a publisher.
Okay.
And Todd was also promoting his baseball book, Winning Ugly. And part of his promotion included a stop at the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York.
Nice.
And any excuse to go to Cooperstown is an excuse I'm going to take. And with Todd, Todd was doing a talk and a signing. And unfortunately, due to reasons I don't want to get into on the air, we were late for the talk. However, we got there for the signing. And following that, we all met up at the house of Jeff Katz, who was the mayor of Cooperstown.
Oh.
And yes, and there before us was this buffet spread of not only Cooperstown's finest pizza, but various special edition Oreo flavors.
Okay.
Which he had curated over the years. And as we ate pizza and special limited edition Oreos, I met, Todd already knew him, Jason, who became our editor and eventually signed us to the deal with Skyhorse and Sports Publishing. Maybe about 2 months later is when that finally happened. And that's what really got things going from that point forward. We had a target date, and we each picked our teams that we wanted to tackle.
Okay, cool.
And we just steamrolled right through it. And what a ride that was, and how much fun it was. You kind of touched upon it earlier, just researching this stuff and the stuff you would find. And it's almost like, we can't explore new lands anymore. It's all been discovered in satellite photos and all that, but we can explore new unearthed hockey uniform and name facts. And it almost made me feel like a modern day explorer, discovering new things never before known.
And it was kind of funny because, we think about the National Hockey League, and we think about the original six, and, the Canadians look much like the Canadians of 1918. Right. And the Boston Bruins have changed over the years, but they, there's, and the Detroit Red Wings look much like the Detroit Red Wings of the early 1930s. And I remember saying to Chris at one point, listen, we're going to have a lot to talk about when it comes to the looks of the Dallas Stars or the New York Islanders, the Canucks, teams that have changed a lot. How can we squeeze 2,000 words out of the Montreal Canadiens when we don't know who designed the logo? We're never going to know this. And they really haven't changed. And yet we did. And, the wonderful part to me about research, and I believe Chris feels the same way, is that, you learn something and you disappear down these rabbit holes. And sometimes they lead nowhere, but, learning something is always a good thing. And being sort of pushed out of your preconceived notions about something you think you know about is even better.
And a good example of that, Todd, is when I spent 5 hours pouring through French language newspapers from the early or from like 1919, just trying to find any evidence that the Quebec Athletics were actually known as the Bulldogs officially. Yes. And if they had a particular French name, or if it was actually Athletics in English and French, and if they had the accent on the E in Quebec for the French version of the name, and what did we end up finding? Nothing. But it was about 4 or 5 hours.
There's not always a smoking gun when it comes to this stuff. But just being able to definitively, kind of come to a conclusion that this short-lived Quebec franchise was not called the Bulldogs. That's a separate team, and they are the Athletics. We found newspaper accounts. They are not the Bulldogs. They are the Athletics. We feel like we contributed something important.
Now, you did find a smoking gun on that, right? Because you found an article that specifically said, though we may call them the Bulldogs, officially they're Athletics. And can't get any more definitive than that.
Yeah, exactly.
And smoking gun, smoke, Montreal Wanderers, burned down arena.
Nice segue.
You
I thought you were going to go with Schwartz's,
But you can, as a casual observer, you think, oh, well, that sucks. The Wanderers only lasted 6 games in the NHL, not a long lasting franchise, but you realize that they have a history that spans winning more Stanley Cups than some franchises that exist today. And you're like, I just can't write 2 sentences and then that's it. It just doesn't seem right. It's not fair. It's not justice, right? So that's, I think, what happens with the rabbit holes. And then all of a sudden you're learning about who is it? Margaret Norris giving hand signals to Conn Smythe in backdoor meetings because she's a woman and can't vote on league decisions when she's owner of the Red Wings. And it's just like, how did I get here? Why is there a strike that's determining whether or not we drink Molson beer anymore and allow the WHA merger to happen? Like, yes. I don't understand. All these
preconceived notions. We talk about the history of the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers have, pretty much looked the same as they did when they were in the WHA. Some, a few shifts here and there, but we learned why their colors are blue and orange and the marketing story behind it all. And yeah, we love this stuff.
And that your book came in handy for me when people were commenting on their reactions of reverse retro jerseys in general, but one that kind of rubbed people a little the wrong way, I think, before the kits were fully seen was the Winnipeg Jets. And I was like, oh, but you don't understand, like an early concept jersey color pattern for that team was these colors. And it was a big W, but it's also an earlier logo mixed with an earlier color palette. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. But I don't know if a lot of people know that because I'm one of the few that got a copy of the book and was reading through it and noticed this stuff. So it's so worth getting because it's just like, you peek through history in so many different ways. And I'm just curious, we've been talking about all these cool, fun stories and rabbit holes. Was there anything that you had a real hard time omitting from the book that maybe you can tell us about now that just you think is just a fun quip about hockey jersey history or hockey history in general?
Well, I mean, as you said, Dan, we have itemized every team that played a game or a season in the history of the National Hockey League. And the Montreal Wanderers of the world don't warrant as many words clearly as the Canadians, for example. The Seattle Kraken are in there. They haven't even played a game. That's another story entirely. But I think we did a pretty good job of getting the really important stuff out there. We definitely left some minutiae on the table. We had a lot of push and pull, I think it's fair to say, insofar as, prioritizing. You've only got a certain amount of real estate available. We wanted to maintain a balance, I think, of words and pictures. And, let's put it this way. I personally don't think we left anything out that was really, really important. But, things that are dear to our hearts will remain there for sure. Chris might feel differently.
Well, Todd knows this. I just wanted 1,000 more pictures in the book. But
I set you up.
But I mean, realistically, this thing can't be the size of a phone book. Like if you wanted to put in every photo that we wanted to put in there, you wouldn't be able to carry it, right? You need a 2-man team, probably back braces and all that. But I think we got a nice balance in there. We did some. Well, we didn't get a photo of every jersey that ever existed in there. There are online resources for that, such as my website. However, we did do a great job, I think, of focusing on the actual stories behind them. It's right in the title, the stories behind the names. And I don't think we omitted anything. We really got in there. We dug deep. I will say, having recently read the Maple Leafs chapter, I wish we included the story about why it's Leafs rather than Leaves.
That is cool.
Yeah, we missed that, but that's because there's just so much cool Maple Leaf stuff in there that totally that we didn't get to it. So other than that, I think we hit it out. We got it.
And wasn't there an owner that like opposed the whole name tags the nameplates on the back. So for a while they made them the same color. So like, it was like, oh no, they're technically there. Yeah.
Harold Ballard. Yep. He didn't get away with it either. The NHL was like, wait a second. But I just saw one of those jerseys the other day on an auction site. They still exist with the blue on blue nameplate.
Oh, no way. That's so cool. Well, you mentioned your website. It's something I did want to bring up to. Sportslogos.net is an excellent resource for anyone like myself who is just spending an exorbitant amount of time trying to justify buying a different jersey of the Canucks or something because, oh yeah, that color was slightly different, or that logo, or, oh, that's the anniversary design. That's the patch that it became. Got it. Cool. And you've done so much with the site too. You also have a YouTube channel that is very informative. It's not, none of these resources are hockey only. They're very, very across the sport palette. And Todd, you yourself, you've spanned a lot of different genres of sport as well, with both writing about it and working with teams. You've designed professional teams' logos. I know you're a big baseball guy as well. So have you guys always just been really interested in sport design, and that was like a thing no matter the sport that you were involved in? Or was it kind of born out of either, for you, Chris, hockey, and Todd, baseball, and then it became more like, hey, I need to expand, and grew to the other sports from there?
This is for me. I'm taking it.
Yeah, you want to start it out? I mean,
sure. I mean, well, if we're doing it chronologically, I'm going to jump in about 20 years after you, but
keeps it lively here.
Okay. Keeps it lively. All right, let's go. I think I always had an interest in design and logos and uniforms. And that goes right back to day one. You said you watched the Unified podcast the other day, and I mentioned this story in the podcast as well. As I remember going to a hockey game with my dad and just focusing on the uniforms of the teams, and not so much caring about the game so much. And that just carried forward as I got older, right? I'd go to the Sky Dome with my parents, and I would notice what the other team was wearing. I would notice the design of the statistics on the scoreboard, for example, the advertisements in the outfield, things like that. And I always found more interest in how things were sort of laid out and set up in the elements around the game. Now, I mean, I'm still a big sports fan. I love the game. I watch it, but I will focus on the things around it and what the players are wearing. And that's just been that way since I was a sports fan right from the beginning. Now you keep mentioning Chris with hockey. I'm a baseball fan primarily, more than hockey.
Okay. Cool.
And that's just where I grew up and how old I am. Like when I was of age, the Blue Jays were number 1 every year and the Maple Leafs were number 26 every year. So don't blame me. I can't help it. Blue Jays number 1 for life, Maple Leafs number 2. Nothing personal. It's not a very Canadian way to go, but I think you'll find everyone around my age group in this area is the same way. Yeah. Yeah.
I was born in Toronto and I'm going to be 35 this year. So I feel like we're a couple years apart, and I distinctly remember horns honking everywhere in the city when they won the World Series. And I can still remember like the Coca-Cola can that had like the lineup on it. And like, I think if you go to every restaurant in Toronto and use the bathroom, everyone's got like a World Series champions like poster like in there somewhere. It's a huge part of Toronto. So
it's amazing how big that Toronto's seen as a hockey city, and it is, but going to any sports establishment in Toronto, the Blue Jays have such a huge presence there.
Yeah.
More than the Raptors, I wouldn't say more than the Leafs, but maybe equal to the Leafs. But I'm going way off topic right now.
Hey, that's all right. I felt a little nostalgic because you said Sky Dome and I was like, yeah, all right. That's a good one. So what about you, Todd?
Yeah, I mean, I am much like Chris in the sense that, ever since I was a kid, I have focused on what I call the visual culture of sports, right? In a way that, never a great athlete necessarily. But at any rate, the difference here is the fact that I'm part of a family of artists, right?
Yeah, and fourth generation, right?
Fourth generation, that's right. So, I would go with my dad to baseball games, Yankee games. I grew up in New York, and hey, I remember when the Blue Jays came into existence in 1977, and I was absolutely enraptured by what they were wearing, by this new modern logo, the uniforms. I mean, I saw them play in person at least 3-4 times in 1977, 78 at Yankee Stadium. Love the logo then, love the logo now. And of course, I pursued design as a vocation and began to specialize in sports design at a point where, I say this every single day. It was a very nascent field. If we had a sports design convention, it would probably be, less than 10 guys. You could do it in a bar. It would all be guys. It's a very different field now in a great way. So yeah, I started working with leagues, teams, branding for teams, events, et cetera, designing uniforms back in the early 90s. So it's been quite a journey. And as far as different sports is concerned, growing up where I did, New York, a lot of sports to absorb. But I will say that I have always been, especially in love with the visual culture of hockey. Dating back to the WHA days, I had here an envelope I wrote away to the WHA, and they sent me stickers, team logo stickers. So I have my Indianapolis Racers sticker here. The New England Whalers, they're all here. And then when I was in college, I lived 1 block from Madison Square Garden, and I used to go to a lot of Rangers games. And I had a friend of mine who I went to school with, who had a partial season ticket plan at that time. Was not a necessarily expensive thing, certainly relative to today. It's, crazy difference. But we would go up to the blue seats up in the upper deck in the garden and sit in the front row and bring our art portfolios, and you could stick them with, maybe a 12-pack of beer cans, and nobody would care. And, in those days, I got to see a lot of great hockey.
Oh, man. Absolutely. Those were some amazing times. And unfortunately, some hard times for my Canucks in the mid-90s there too. And I have to ask from both now, where the era that we grew up in, Chris and I, and yourself, and your work in sport and design and art, and getting into it in the mid-90s, a big part of hockey history people may not appreciate is that hockey cards have a significant effect on the 94 lockout because of how much money there was in cards back then. And I remember before knowing that, I've been stashing my Martin Brodeur rookie card, thinking it's worth a lot of money, now knowing there's 50,000 of them that were printed. But another cool thing about sets back then were checklist cards and stuff used to be illustrated athletes or captured moments and stuff. And I'm curious, did you ever get involved in doing any of that, or was it more logo for you?
Yeah, all on the logo front, not completely all. I did and have always worked with licensees and business partners of, various professional sports leagues, people who make the stuff. But cards is always a very, that's a very segmented thing. And of course, we all know, and I'm sure many of your listeners know, the card business sort of blew up at a certain time, and not in a good way because of oversaturation.
Right.
And what was at once, one time huge, sort of, scaled back at some point. So, like you guys, I collected cards when I was growing up, not necessarily obsessively. But love the design of them, still love the design of them. And I think, Dan, you hit on something important. The 90s, when you and Chris were, coming of age as sports fans and human beings, when we talk about sports design, things went a little off the rails at that point.
Oh yeah.
There was a lot of experimentation, I think it's fair to say. And I say this in my baseball book, Winning Ugly. I'm a child of the 70s. And at that time, the experimentation sometimes resulted in gigantic flaming grease fires, dumpster fires. And sometimes they were just joyously wonderful. And I think, the same thing happened in the 90s.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, gosh, there were some interesting jerseys back then, to say the least. And I'm even thinking like 70s and white skates with the California Golden Seals and stuff like that. There's some interesting times for sure. And both of you either are designing or very heavily involved in the discussion of logo. So one of the things I wanted to ask you both was, if you could take any logo off the shelf of the NHL right now and get a chance to work with it, either to do a redesign, to do a third jersey, to do anything, is there any team that you'd like to work with, or any logo idea that you see out there that you really love that you'd like to experiment and create with? And I'll start with you, Todd.
Well, I think a couple of teams come to mind for two different reasons. Number one, I think a team that may benefit from a fresh look at what they look like, to me, would be the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Okay.
I would say that teams have license. Some teams have license to burn it down and start from scratch. And why is that? A tradition of winning makes it difficult to do something like that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the Montreal Canadiens should always look like the Montreal Canadiens, regardless of the fact that they haven't won a cup in a long time. But there is a storied history involved there. The same would apply to the Red Wings. But in the case of the Blue Jackets, they are sort of frozen in amber circa, 2000. And I think they could benefit from a little bit of a reboot. And then the second part of it, I think, is an interesting one. Some teams have license to paint around the edges and perhaps expand the look of their team. And I think of, here in the New York area, the New Jersey Devils, a team with a very storied history, multiple Stanley Cups. They've maintained the same logo, albeit with a color shift along the way. But if we think about the Devils, they really don't have a deep visual program. There is no secondary logo. They don't have a noticeable word mark to speak of. And this has been a sort of consistently Lou Lamoriello thing.
Yes.
A guy who does not go for bells or whistles. But I think that there are, plenty of original six style. Let's look at it this way. There are a number of teams that have a little bit of an expanded array of visual assets. I think the Devils could get a little deeper. Let's just put it that way.
That's I like that Devils answer too, because I mean, even when they started doing, I think, the Heritage Classic, they were like, oh, we'll just use the jersey that we've been using kind of incrementally over time, which is really just our first jersey anyway. It's like, God, could you get any lazier? Like just start doing something new and run with it. So I love that. And I agree with the Blue Jackets. And I love the way that you phrase that answer. I've never considered the effect that success would have on the ability to tear things down and start over. So
absolutely. And I would add to that, my experience on the design side has always been that teams that make a change and really burn it down to the ground do so for one of several very defined reasons. A change in ownership quite frequently. Look what happened to the Florida Panthers several years ago. And I like what they did. And this is a team that hadn't necessarily won in a while. And again, to reiterate what I just said, same thing. If you don't have a tradition of winning, you really, it makes it difficult to move forward if you do. Let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm. All right, Chris, what about you? What do you want to get your hands on?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, Todd picked a great one with the Blue Jackets. So how about the LA Kings?
Why?
Well,
do you want to see it go back to some royal colors, or do you like the chevron days? Or
here's the thing with the LA Kings. I always like what they're currently not wearing. Does that make sense? When they were black and silver in the Gretzky days, I wanted them to go back to purple. When they added the purple again in the early 2000s, I wanted them to go back to black and silver. Now I want purple and gold again. And just looking at those reverse retro uniforms, I love that. Like the combination of eras with the white chevron logo on the front and the purple and gold. This is a team that has sort of bounced back and forth with what their identity is. And as a Canucks fan, you have no idea what that's like. And they just need, at this point, it's like, okay, maybe you just need to merge everything together and roll with it going forward. Kind of like what the San Diego Padres or the Milwaukee Brewers are doing, figure out what your look is, what your iconic look is. And if you even go to the Kings chapter in our book, we used purple and gold as their color scheme in there, just because we think that that's their iconic look. And it is, right? No one else is purple and gold. It's the Kings. They own it. So why not own it and go forward with it? And if I could change one team, that's the one I would do. And I really want to quickly go back. You talked about the illustrated team checklists.
Yeah.
Many of those were created by Vernon Wells' father, the former Blue Jays outfielder.
No kidding.
Vernon Wells Sr. So, go back and find some of those old checklists, look in the bottom corner, and you'll see V. Wells is signed in the corner.
Very talented painter.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I knew that Terry Smith, another guy that comes up sometimes in hockey conversations because of his affiliation with the Sharks logo design, among other teams like the Barons and such, so that's really cool. I didn't know that that relationship was there, because I'll definitely be combing through cards later to take a look at that. And I like that answer about the Kings too, because it kind of segues into another question I had for you guys, which was like, I've seen jerseys incorporate different materials sometimes into them. And I'll give you an example with Nike using recycled plastic bottles in their jersey designs on the Olympic jerseys to make it have like a maple leaf reflection effect going on. And I'm kind of thinking about your answer to the Kings and getting your hands on redoing that. And I think of trim and how that's sometimes been used as an accent piece. Think of like the Thrashers, for example, how they had like those different triangles going on. And I think of a royal coat, and I think, how it's white with those black kind of spots sometimes around it that's fluffy. And I'm thinking you could make that black spot, if you zoomed really in, maybe the chevron logo, but from far away, it would just look like a black spot, and you could make that all trim and then bring back the purple and yellow still there for that effect. And that's what I like to think about, is these mashups and concepts and what you can hide in there, and who does a good job of maybe trying to tell a story in one logo and not going too far in one direction. And so there's a lot of ways to take this question, which could be, do you like what's out there as use of negative space? Or do you like when teams use the negative space to convey something? I'm just kind of curious what logos out there are impressing you from the standpoint of either using negative space or trying to convey some story within their logo design.
I think, when it comes to storytelling or, really, using the kind of space that you're talking about, Dan, I always liken it to a great meal. Some of the best meals I've ever had use very few ingredients, right? Too many ingredients can spoil the meal. And we are at this point, not so much in the NHL, but certainly in other sports, where teams introduce a new look or a new jersey, and they get very over their skis with storytelling, very unnecessarily to me. I think one of the great things personally about the hockey sweater, as we know it in the NHL, for time immemorial, is that it's really honest. You've got a big crest, and sometimes you can have some signature striping, some elements that make the thing whole. but it's not predicated on a lot of gimmicks. A couple of teams that do this very well, and I bet you Chris is going to say, I was going to say that too, would be the Vegas Golden Knights, who have beautiful texture, right? But it's not overpowering. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't even know it was there unless you really looked for it. Mm-hmm. But it complements the whole thing in a very Vegas-y, blingy way, but without being over the top. Even the Carolina Hurricanes with the flag pattern, the warning flag pattern, which they've had forever. It's subtle, but it's very effective, and it is intrinsically theirs. And then, you have teams, of course, that have, their own striping patterns for time immemorial. Think about the Blackhawks and what they look like. And even, going further back, we talk in the book about the Kansas City Scouts, full of stripes. Oh my goodness, so many stripes. And even going before the Scouts, the Ottawa Senators of, the early days, right? We had just the barber poles, which are so cool. And it is, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I think that is a really hard thing to pull off without being, without twisting yourself up in knots.
The best logos are the most simplest logos, in my opinion. You think of your Hartford Whalers, your Atlanta Flames, right? These are the ones that stand out to me, where they do so much without doing too much, right? Yeah. Like they stand the test of time. Everyone loves the Atlanta Flames and Hartford Whalers logos. And speaking of the Whalers and their use of negative space, but you certainly, just is pretty much the same thing Todd said, and I'm just going to repeat him. And that is, you don't want to cram too much into it, right? Like, I'm a fan of what the Golden Knights have done. Todd stole my answer. And that, what is the Nevada sage brush, I think is what it is, the design that they've put into the shield around the logo on the crest and into the striping on the gold stripes on the jersey. And it's there, but it's not there. You know what I mean? Like it's not, you're not getting hit over the head with it. It's not like some of the alternate jerseys we saw, like the Coyotes with the desert landscape, just like plastered right on there. They're adding this element of their local geography, but not to the detriment of the overall design of the jersey of their brand. And I'm because Todd stole my answer with the Golden Knights, I'm going to steal one of his good points that he usually makes on these appearances that we do. And that is that the hockey jersey is like no other because it's not encumbered by like equipment and like a football jersey is just giant numbers, and the basketball jersey has to have big numbers and, short sleeves and all that. The hockey jersey is basically all about the team. It's the largest canvas you have to dedicate to a team design. And that's probably why we love them so much.
Yeah, maybe. I can't explain why I've been seeing my therapist about it for years. But
well, one other thing I would quickly add to that, which I think Chris nailed it, is, you think about the hockey jersey worn outside, right? Not tucked in. Mm-hmm. You have all of this, opportunity to have striping, right? Which very traditionally will kind of squeeze the eye to the really important stuff, which is the crest. And then, of course, we get to the Vancouver Canucks of 1978, which I don't know we want to expand upon, but, it is a very different approach to that, but utilizing that expansive canvas that Chris discussed in a very revolutionary, intentionally revolutionary way.
And another one that did it and then did it well and poorly, in my opinion, but subjective, whatever, is the Thrashers. You've got one time where they use that space to make a non-symmetrical one side be blue just to be that way. And then you also have another time in their history where you see a little bit of a non-traditional striping pattern on the arms to give the effect of wings, a little bit more like on a Thrasher bird. And it's just another example, I think, of someone trying to push the creative envelope in that regard. And it's interesting looking at the eras at when they did this, because it can go back to that 90s talk we were saying and be like, yeah, it was pretty experimental back then. Not sure those trumpets in St. Louis were such a hot idea, but,
Well, listen, in the case of the Thrashers, even furthermore, I would nominate the Atlanta Thrashers as sort of the Nike City Edition look in the NBA that we see now. On any given night, the Thrashers had a distinctive home and road set, which is quite unusual. It's happened before, with the Penguins, right? But I mean, why? What was the point? They didn't look like a unified team. Whatever the case, very, very different color schemes. There you go, Chris. Hold that baby up. A lot of 6 different colors, something like that. 2 metallics, a cement. Like why? And I felt that way.
Yeah, and some other interesting uses of space have been back on the Canada thing. The triangles of gold leaves to signify how many Olympic medals they've won between men, women, and Paralympic, and that's kind of a neat use of space that's different than the Islanders taking 4 stripes on the stick to indicate their 4 Stanley Cup wins, or the 5 rivets on the 3rd jersey oil to do the Stanley Cups, as well. So I like when people hide things without it being a call to it. Like, look at this feature, and that's just my personal opinion, because I think I appreciate people that can be clever with the design and not take the easy way out. And it was just interesting, the logos you mentioned, Todd, because you mentioned the Scouts in there. There's a negative space arrow in that logo. The Canes were mentioned. You also have a use of the state of North Carolina in the negative space of the flag there, and Vegas Golden Knights was mentioned by both of you, and there's people that have seen how it glows when you put that logo under a black light, because the one eye like pops, and it's like, wait, have we ever thought about doing a jersey that is colors, but then when you threw it under black light, like, was a completely different look? And it just gets the mind turning about how to use the same canvas, but then maybe pull off like a completely different second design or something. So anyway, just food for thought, but also just really what makes the hockey jersey unique. And I loved those points that you added. So thanks, guys. We're certainly out of time in the sense that I just am so grateful for how much we've spent talking about this, and want to be respectful of the evening ahead. And before I let you go, though, and completely let you off the hook, and I do appreciate your time, I wanted to take a different approach to our trivia segment, because typically what I do with my guests is I'll find out what team is their favorite and then ask them 3 questions about that team. And if they get it right, they win a prize. And that prize is usually either like a copy of your book that's on back order. It's getting trivia questions out of that book. So that would be kind of redundant in this case. So what I thought I'd try to do is use the knowledge you've given me to then come up with a question for each of you. And then I was thinking, if there was something that you knew was in your book that you wanted to ask me about, or just some random hockey trivia question, I'll see if I can get the answer right. And that way we'll just have some fun with this last segment. So who would like their trivia question first? Todd or Chris? Who wants to fall on the sword?
Lack of age before beauty.
Let's do it. Let's see if you can embarrass me. This would be fun.
Yeah. I mean, typically I'll take great pride in stumping you if I do, but at the same time, it's not like I'm masochistic about this approach, but we'll see. And it's kind of been talked about. We brought up this team. It's related to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Okay. And we've been talking about hidden logos and meanings and just the use of a jersey. So the Whalers are like the FedEx logo of the NHL in the sense of using negative space. And then there's other teams that take a less subtle approach, like the Nordiques using like an igloo and N, and okay, we get it. And then there's the Washington Capitals with like their negative space allowing for the Washington Monument to be in there. And there's something really unique about the Columbus Blue Jackets earliest jerseys. And it's something related to the fabric. So I'm wondering if you know what that unique quality is about the fabric, and that why it is that way, what it symbolizes.
There was a very subtle and barely noticeable horizontal striping pattern
There it
on
is.
the original Blue Jackets jerseys. And while I don't recall ever hearing an official reason for this, I'm just going to have to take a guess. And that's not a Yellow Jacket striping, is it? Is it supposed to look like a wasp? Yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
you got it. You got it. I
Do
thought
I
it
win a
was
copy of my book?
exactly right. Congratulations. Great answer. Great job. I thought the stripes were related to a US flag because I knew like Blue Jackets were like kind of something related to just the armed forces. And I figured that was the tie-in, but your guess was spot on. It's related to, there's a bee or a hornet called a blue jacket. So it's the striping of the blue jacket. So congratulations. Nice job.
Thank you.
All right. So now the pressure's completely off you and on to Todd.
So I can relax the rest of the show.
Yeah, that's right. And Todd, I know, is a big baseball guy as well. So yours is related to just the history of how baseball and hockey are related. And let me just get to it. So there are 3 teams in the NHL that don't exist anymore, whose names were the same or very similar to ones used by baseball teams. So we have the Colorado Rockies, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and it sounds like if the New York Americans survived a little longer, they would have been the Brooklyn Americans turned Brooklyn Dodgers, right? So only one of these teams, however, was the first in NHL history to have a patch. So which one of the teams is it, and what is the patch?
So you're saying a shoulder patch, like a sleeve patch?
I guess so. Yes. Yes, I am.
I would say the Colorado Rockies, who had the C from the Colorado flag. Am I right?
Yes, that is what they had. I might have phrased the question weird, but I'm looking for if there was a team. Was the Rockies the first team that had any kind of sleeve arm patch at all, or was it the Pirates, or was it the Brooklyn Americans?
The Pirates had the city of Pittsburgh's coat of arms on their sleeves at one time. A very involved looking coat of arms, very beautiful, black and gold.
I actually didn't know that. So this is why this trivia is so freaking funny to me, because I thought I'd try to stump you, and I'm actually learning I was wrong.
What's the answer, Dan? Hit me.
Because were you going to say Brooklyn with the cross flag?
With the cross flags.
That was 15 years later.
See, this is why I need more time with the book. And
Todd we need more pictures to Chris's
point. See? Todd said the answer, and I was like, yeah, Todd, you got it. And I looked at you, and you looked confused.
Pittsburgh Pirates,
yep.
Who had a lot of different looks for a team that didn't exist for that
for very long at all.
Yeah.
No, it's very strange. Yeah.
And the original black and gold? No, the Tigers were before them, but the Pirates. I could have used this as my trivia question for you. Should I just segue right into it?
Go for it. I might know this one, but go for it. Let's see.
I think I gave away the answer just by talking about
how the colors came from the City of Champions, or like.
No, I was going to ask you about how the Penguins won their lawsuit over the Bruins, or the Bruins when they challenged the Penguins in the '80s over the color scheme.
I definitely would have got that wrong, because I don't know what you're talking about. So what's going on there?
Sure. Okay. Well, in 1980, right, the Pittsburgh Penguins mid-season, following championships by the Pirates and the Steelers,
they changed their color scheme.
Said, we're changing our color scheme mid-season. The Boston Bruins protested, saying, we own this color scheme in the NHL.
Okay.
The Pirates, I buggered this up. The Penguins gave a reason why they should be allowed to use the black and gold. What was the reason?
And it was because of the Pittsburgh Pirates originally, and the team being there originally and originally using those colors.
Yes, the Pirates wore black and gold before the Boston Bruins ever did, because the Bruins started off as brown and gold. Look at this. Oh, your green screen.
Just
all I see is divine imagery
of our book.
What page?
You will see a lovely illustration done by yours truly of a Pittsburgh Pirates player from 1925 on 177. And on his sleeves.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the coat of arms. There you go.
There you go.
I think Todd should win 2 books for that.
I would like 2 books. I can't wait till they arrive.
Oh, man, I can't wait either. And I know a lot of people across Canada are really chomping at the bit because they couldn't get the ones that were, some of them couldn't through Amazon, where I'm in the States, so I was able to. And I sent off as many as I could buy to the people I knew couldn't get them. And I know that they're just super excited for the next launch too. And hey, I've been super excited to have you guys on. I'm now in the whole getting more copies of your book. Like I needed an excuse, to share the love and wealth. I'm just so thankful for your time, guys. I know that I could have kept you longer. I know if you want to stay and go through my closet, you're welcome to hang on the phone with me. That's totally a thing. That's not weird at all. And also, just before we go and formally say goodbye to our listeners as well, I want to give both of you a chance to just say whatever it is you're working on, or how we can follow you on social media, or what's the best way of getting in touch with you for other copies of other books that you've written or other projects that you're on. So I'll start with you, Todd, if you don't mind.
Sure. Thank you, Dan. First of all, thank you for having us. What a great conversation. I personally love these discussions because we discover people who are oddly much like us, passionate about what other people think are unusual things. So thank you so much for having us. So your listeners can find me at my website, toddradom.com, TODDRADOM.com, a wealth of stuff on there from my design work to the blog that Chris referenced before. And you can hit me on the socials at Todd Radom, and that would be both on Twitter and Instagram.
Thank you so much, Todd. Really appreciate it. And Chris.
Yes. Well, you can find me here. Whoop.
Sportslogos.net.
Sportslogos.net is the website with the news and the logos and the forum and all that. Twitter at sportslogos.net. Instagram, I believe, is the same. We have the YouTube channel, and that is youtube.com/sportslogos, not .net. And what am I working on now? The podcast with Paul Lucas, which is called Unified. I think we're recording an episode tomorrow. And that's the latest. And the book, the book, that's the only one I have. I'm not a veteran of the published word as Todd is, but hopefully more to come. And I want to thank you again for having us on here because it was a lot of fun.
Oh, great. Thanks so much, guys. And have a great week. Good luck with your next episode of your podcast, Chris, and your next virtual book signing tour, Todd, or whatever it is.
Well, can't wait until we get to do it in person. But first things.
Yeah, and enjoy the games that are going on. I hope we make it through the season all healthy and safe. So thanks, guys. Have a great evening.
Thank you.